The complications of untreated food addiction result in early death. And I always like to tell my family history at this point because my own mother was a very determined, intelligent, ethical human being. She was a wonderful woman. And when she was very young, she walked into the kitchen of her family home, and her brother was passed out at the table from drinking. He was an alcoholic, and that brother actually died at age 55. And my mother said, I will never, ever have that happen to me. And it never did, because my mother never picked up the first drink of alcohol. Voila, she knew what to do to avoid alcoholism. I actually have a son that's done the same thing. However, my mother was already involved with food and had a weight problem, and she struggled with her weight for 64 years. And at around age 64-something, she said to me, Kay, I've given up. I'm going to eat the way I want to for the rest of my life. And I said, oh, no, we'll figure out something. Well, I didn't know what I was going to figure out because I didn't know any better than she what to do about it. But I said, no. And she said, no, for the rest of my life, I'm going to eat the way I want to. And she didn't live more than a year. She died at age 65, very young. Went to bed one night and didn't get up the next morning. Shocking to her family, shocked. We were shocked because she was moving around and active the day before she died, and she was gone the next morning. And we really felt that her death, although she didn't have an autopsy, her death was related to her food addiction and her heart condition that was related to her food addiction and her eating patterns. So the complications of untreated food addiction result in early death. And probably many of us don't have to go far to find that person that died early because of food addiction. So what are the characteristics of food addiction? Obsession with food, frequently recurring thoughts about buying, preparing, eating, addictive triggers. And is that the imagined paradigm? Where's Dr. Stice? Is obsession the imagined paradigm? Sort of, I think. Anyway, it's frequently recurring thoughts about buying, preparing, eating addictive trigger foods. And I just thought I'd start using the term imagined paradigm, so we have to be sure I'm accurate. But anyway, we have food addicts obsessed with food and obsessed with weight. Constant eating increases fear of weight gain and pursuit of weight loss regimens by dieting, purging, fasting, and extreme exercises. Loss of control over the amount eaten. Compulsion is the inability to stop eating after the ingestion of addictive trigger foods. And I wanted to just tell you a little thing about obsession. Whenever I think of about obsession, I think of this scenario. A worker sitting at the desk speaking to her boss. They're involved in work conversation, and it's starting to be noon. And the food addict who's talking to her boss starts obsessing about food. Oh my gosh, it's almost noon. I wonder if he'll ask me out to lunch. If he asks me out to lunch, I wonder where we'll go. Oh, gee, I'll have to be very careful about how I eat because I don't want him to see me making a pig out of myself. Oh, but it'd be nice if we could go out and have some Mexican food. Well, I better be careful. Maybe I could just slip away from the desk for a minute and get something out of my purse and just nosh in the bathroom for a minute, but I really need something. And, so that's how it goes. This person isn't present for life because the thoughts are these recurring thoughts about seeking it, getting it, fixing it, eating it, just get in the way. This person isn't present for her job, her family, for anything. That's how food kind of takes over the mental processes. And obsession with weight. And I'm very careful about people who obsess about weight in recovery because it's one of the characteristics of active addiction. And we have to be very careful to work with people who are focused on weight. We like to say that focus on recovery and weight will take care of itself. Focus on weight and you'll lose recovery. because it's not a goal or an outcome that we're necessarily focused on. And we don't like to set goal weights. We like good, healthy living, as Yvonne was talking about, to be the goal and the manner in which someone recovers. Loss of amount, the amount of food eaten by food addicts is amazing and really kind of interesting. There was one woman who baked a cake for her family, and they ate half of it at the family dinner. And then everybody the next day went off to school and work, and there was that half a cake sitting there, so she ate it. And then it dawned on her, oh my goodness, they're going to come home and expect to have that other half of the cake for dinner. So she baked another one and ate half of it. And then this dear girl was babysitting for her newborn nephew. And she was rummaging through the house looking for something sweet to eat. Couldn't find anything. Finally, she went into the freezer and found the top of the wedding cake that they were saving for their first anniversary and ate it. I said, what did your sister say? And she said she never noticed. They just didn't realize they'd saved it. But that's desperation. That's desperation when you eat somebody's memento from their wedding. Well, this is Dr. Noble's work, and it was published in the International Journal of Eating Disorders. And what I want to say about it is that that was in 1994, when we got this article, we were so happy, because this was the first scientist that we knew of that was working in our field and coming up with scientific evidence that food is really an addiction. He talked about obesity, but he learned later on at the Food Addiction 2000 conference that it was food addiction that was really being looked at. So he's already given you that information, so I don't need to go over it, but we're just grateful and we love him. He's our hero. Brain and body chemistry. So the brain and body of a food addict react differently to addictive foods due to inherited predisposition to the disease of addiction. That's what everybody's been saying all weekend, isn't it? Addictive foods stimulate and increase the transmission of neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin. When the brain is flooded with neurotransmitters, euphoria results. That's the high of addiction. So the brain, we've talked so much about the brain chemistry, but I just want to make a point about the flooding and depleting. The flooding and depleting, refined carbohydrates cause blood sugar and serotonin levels to rise and fall rapidly, creating a state of craving, distress, and depression. Eating addictive foods results in a feeling of urgency and a compulsion to eat more. The brain seeks balance, and I think that concept that the brain is seeking balance in altogether the wrong way by self-medicating with any substance is very important when we get into the recovery process, because that's our job, to bring brain chemistry into balance. Dependence or a physical need for addictive foods develops as the body cells change to tolerate higher levels of addictive foods, usually refined carbohydrates, simple sugars, processed food, caffeine, alcohol, and processed animal fats. I call it crap. The addictive substances are crap. Caffeine, refined carbohydrates, alcohol, and processed foods. So you can just say it real quickly, it's crap. It's bad, it's hard, it's bad. One time I said Martha Stewart cooks crap, and people really took me to task because her food is beautiful, but it's not healthy. Well, here's the addictive cycle, and this is a little model that I like to look at the ups and downs of the addiction cycle.